Once upon a time, in a small village nestled among the hills, there lived an elderly woman who was known throughout the village for her kindness, wisdom, and infectious happiness. She had a warm heart, always ready to listen to others, and people from all walks of life sought her out for advice or simply to share their burdens. She was deeply loved by the villagers, and her home became a sanctuary for those in need of solace. One day, a young man from the village, curious about her ever-present joy, approached her. With a genuine tone, he asked, "How is it that you are always so happy, no matter what happens? You never seem to feel sad. Don't you ever feel bad when things go wrong?" The elderly woman smiled kindly and said, "My dear, life is filled with ups and downs. Some days are good and some days are difficult. But over the years I've learned that happiness comes from within, not from external circumstances." The young man, puzzled by her response, pressed further, "But how can you still be happy when bad things happen? How do you find peace in moments of sorrow?" The elderly woman paused, collecting her thoughts, and then began to share a story from her own life. "When I was young, I had a family, a husband and children. We weren't rich, but we were content. We had enough to be happy. But one day my husband fell ill. We didn't have enough money for medicine, and despite our best efforts, he passed away. That was the saddest day of my life. I cried for what seemed like an eternity. I felt as though I would never be happy again." The young man listened intently as the elderly woman continued. "In the midst of my grief, I realized that crying and being sad all the time wouldn't bring him back. My children still needed me, and I needed to find a way to move forward. It was a painful journey, but I came to understand that life is full of both good and bad moments. I made the conscious decision that I would not let the bad times steal my joy." The young man was intrigued but still uncertain. "How did you manage to stay positive after such a loss?" The elderly woman smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Every morning when I wake up, I remind myself that today is a new day, and I will find something to be grateful for. Some days it's harder than others, but there's always something. Maybe the sun is shining, or I see a flower blooming, or I'm greeted by a friend. There's always something small to be thankful for, even in the most challenging times." The young man thought deeply about her words, still struggling to fully comprehend. But what if something truly devastating happens? How can you still find happiness in those moments? The elderly woman's expression softened, and she replied, "It's not easy, my dear, but I remind myself that everything passes. Even the bad times will eventually end. When hardship strikes, I tell myself, this too shall pass. I focus on the good things I still have, like my health, my friends, or simply the fact that I am still alive. Happiness is a choice. We can choose to dwell on the negative and let it consume us, or we can choose to find the positive, even in small things." The young man was moved by her wisdom. He thanked her sincerely, and as he left her house, he made a promise to himself. He would follow her advice and look for the good in every situation. From that day on, he began to see life through a new lens. Whenever challenges arose, he focused on the positive aspects, however small they may be. Over time, he found that his life improved, even in the face of adversity. He had learned to stay positive and find happiness in the little things. As the young man shared his newfound perspective with others, the wisdom of the elderly woman spread throughout the village. More and more people began to realize that happiness does not come from what you have or what happens to you, but from how you perceive and respond to life. They learned to embrace happiness in every moment, just as the elderly woman had taught them. And so, the village became a brighter, more joyful place, as its people followed the path of happiness that the wise old woman had shown them. Her story became a testament to the power of a positive attitude, reminding everyone that no matter what challenges life may throw our way, happiness is a choice that comes from within. Happiness, as the elderly woman had so wisely shared, is not dependent on circumstances. It is about finding joy in the small things, focusing on the positive, and remembering that even the darkest times will eventually pass. When we choose to embrace a positive outlook, we strengthen our resilience and find contentment in the journey of life.